to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Styles and Rosenberg.
Ebro, Laura, Rosenberg's on assignment today. We got a major announcement and things we are rolling out. We have, I don't know what his title is. That's just Liles. He done had mad jobs in my life. I've known the man like 30 years. I don't know what he's doing. I don't even know where the man work now, but I heard something about 300 Entertainment, something else he doing. Kevin Liles is with us today. What's up, OG? How you doing?
Bless you guys. Hey, Laura.
Hi.
What is your title, man? What do you do now?
Well, first off, I'm your friend. I'm a friend of Hot 97.
Yes, you are.
I'm your brother. I know you since you were 16 years old.
That's right.
But more importantly, man, I've been blessed to have a 37-year career in the music business. And we've seen so many artists that have grown to be contributing citizens and great fathers, great businessmen. And I've been blessed to have 3 or 4 companies, whether it was Def Jam and Warner Music Group and now 300 Entertainment, which I just sold to Warner Music Group for a little bit of money. And now I'm the executive vice president. Now I'm the CEO and I'm a chairman CEO of 300 Electra Music Group.
Got it. Okay. All right. There you go. Finally got the title after all that. Chairman, CEO. There you go. Boom. We also have a young man named Jamaal. He's from the Bronx. You from the Bronx?
Yes, sir.
Catalina, where you from?
I am currently from Jackson Heights, but I grew up in East New York.
There you go.
Okay.
Now, you guys also have some awesome titles. You guys aren't just Jamaal and Catalina. Catalina, what is your title?
I'm a New York State Assembly member.
There you go. Catalina's out here. I like that. And Jamaal, your title?
New York State Senator.
These guys got titles, Lord. This is a big deal. But today we're doing something awesome, man, because, you know, we all, as Kevin Liles was pointing out, throughout his career, right, working in the business of music, whether he was writing songs for Milli Vanilli as a young Marylander at 19 years old, or becoming an executive at Def Jam, you have always tried to look out for young black and brown people who have a voice, who want to have a voice and who want to create great music and turn their lives around, which was always the end game, you know, in hip hop too, was to tell our story and change our circumstances for us and our future generations, leveraging the music we make and the entertainment we provide to the masses, and hopefully get to a better place in our life. And here we are today. Kevin Liles, you have worked with Young Thug and YSL, who are being confronted and their music and materials being used as a way to keep them in jail and as evidence against them in a larger RICO charge. And I saw the video of you in court because you and Jeffrey, or Young Thug, have done great business together and made a lot of money together. And he is somebody that you've watched come from the mud and literally try to put positivity in him, his family, his friends' life through music. And so you're confronted with the reality now of trying to explain to the court, listen, his lyrics should not be used against him as a reason to not allow him to have bail. And today there's a law, but this is more specific to what's going on in New York State. But you, Jamaal, and Catalina are hoping this rolls out nationwide also, yes?
Eventually, we hope so, but the first goal would be able to get it passed in the New York State Legislature, which we've been trying to get done this past year. We introduced the bill, which was colloquially titled "Rap Music on Trial," and it is about making sure that the prosecution has to submit to a bar, right, of clear and convincing evidence in order to be able to admit these lyrics into law. So.
Look, I think courts in some of our states have recognized that lyrics are art and therefore should be protected by the First Amendment. And if a prosecutor wants to then be able to use them against a defendant, they have to pass through a test. They can't just do it in the way that they're trying to do it now in several places around the country, including New York just a few weeks ago. But I think more importantly, it's the idea that they're not using this against any other type of music.
Right.
You don't see this, someone coming after a white artist. They're using it against black rappers. And so there is not an undertone. It is clear racism. It's a direct attack on black artists.
Kevin Liles, you are obviously supporting this because it's the right thing to do. Tell us how you met Jamaal and Catalina and everything that you're contributing to this becoming policy and law.
Well, you know, I'm with Reform. You know, Jay and I and Meek and a lot of the Puff, all of us feel a certain way. And we realize that power doesn't just become because you have money. And we've aligned with a lot of assembly members and senators and governors and mayors and House of Representatives to pass laws that we feel are needed in our community, not just based on what our business is, but based on humanizing our business. You know, a lot like you talked about having artists and it being art, but these are young kids that are going to be fathers, and some are fathers now, going to be mothers, going to be contributing citizens to this country, and for them to be prosecuted in this manner, and us not have the support of our elected officials, we're not going to get the job done. You know, job will never be done without the partnership. So this is why I applaud Jamaal and I applaud everybody who's, for Catalina and everybody who's been involved in this particular law. But you have to think, Ebro, we've been fighting this since, you know,
Forever.
Two Live.
That's
Two
right.
Live.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? This is not a new fight.
That's right.
You know what I mean? This is not a new fight, and it's just like what do you call it? Mass incarceration is not a new fight. You know, poverty is not a new fight for
police brutality, not a new fight.
Police brutality is not a new fight. These are things that are systemic racist actions that continue to happen in our community to people of color and people like us. So I've been on trial since I was born because I have a permanent tattoo that's black. And so all of us have to put this good fight in to make sure that this is not about just young stoner life. This is not just about this. This is about our way of life. And in America, if we want to change our way of life, we have to change the laws. And that's period.
One of the biggest indictments of our failures as a society, I've talked about since the 90s, and Kevin, I think we've even talked about this before. Too often we listen to young people and we listen to their music and we tell them what's wrong with them. And we never ask ourselves, or too infrequently, it's not asked on a policy level or parents, police, whomever, about what are these children being exposed to, what lives are they living where this is the things that they want to talk about or that they feel the need to share in the music. We always just point at a young person like, why are you doing this wrong or why are you doing that wrong? But we never go, what's happening with your surroundings? Well, or we don't care enough to do the work to change those surroundings. How many artists, Kevin, have you worked with? And we know some of the most famous, like a Jay-Z, where literally as their surroundings and experience changed because they were able to make money and become fathers and mothers and parents and things like that and learn that they became different types of humans. They didn't, base from where they started from, which most of the time was the bottom, without the tools, without the support in their community, right? In broken homes that were broken because of joblessness and addiction issues and basically a overall disregard and lack of support from our society. So we don't oftentimes listen to this music in that context.
We may not listen to the music, but I think when you have elected officials that look like Jamaal, that look like me, that look like Carl Hasty, that look like Andrea, that you're getting a different kind of feel for the way that we make policy. We don't just throw money at it. We change the laws. We don't just change the laws. We also throw money and invest in the community. You know, we just put in a couple of $1 million. I don't remember the amount because it was a little while ago, but we put money into gun prevention, and we changed the laws around guns. And we did 58 last year to make sure that cops
transparency.
There's transparency. So when you have elected officials that look more like the community that you should be listening to, you're going to get that change. It's going to be a slow change, but you're going to start to see it.
And that's a big frustration, too, that slow part, because, you know,
it's frustrating for us, too, right? Like, for example, I was the lead sponsor on 58. 58 was my bill, and it took us hearings, it took us conversations, it took uncomfortable conversations with people who's quite frankly were not accustomed or didn't want to become accustomed to what needed to be a new way of thinking. That we needed these records to be opened up for transparency. Transparency for this, not just for transparency's sake, so that the victims of brutality, so that these victims of these atrocities can have some sort of peace of mind by simply knowing who committed an act against them, right?
And to remind the audience too, sorry, Laura, to remind the audience, we talked about this a lot on the air, which was Statute 58, which was so that the public can go see the background, the reports on police officers, the complaints on police officers, discipline on police officers, crimes on police officers, so that all of the public can see what's going on.
And shout out to Councilors Malcolm, Gwen Carr, Valerie Bell, the mothers of the movement. They as a legislator, yes, it was my legislation, but they were the inspiration, the wind beneath our wings, so to speak, that helped us propel it, because they were similarly situated. Sister of Delron Small, like these folks in our community who we know intimately, but we shouldn't know them because their loved one passed away. Yeah. But they've taken that tragedy and turned it into triumph, so to speak, and they decided to bring us something, I guess, real and tangible. But to your point, Ebro, you're talking about like in Dope Man, Jay said it, I'm a victim of circumstance, frail person and couldn't much work with my hands, right? And in that whole verse and that whole line, he talks about the circumstances that are around individuals in the community, right? When you grow up in the hood, my mind was strong, you know, you taught me to pick gats up. Destroy our dreams of lawyers and actors, right? Like all of these things happen every single day in our community with the policies, the regressive policies that have been put in place before people like me and Catalina and Carl and Andrea got into office, right? But it's our job as elected officials to not just look at this one bill as rap music on trial of 50A or clean slate with Catalina as the champion on with Zelnor Myrie. Like we have to make sure that you elect people to make an actual change, a real change in your community, and you got to hold us accountable, and that's real.
I think that's one thing that we always push on our show, the importance of local voting. A lot of the communities, and I'm sure you guys have heard it all, the disappointment, and they feel nothing's getting done, nothing is changing. It's the same conversation, but you guys today are proof that things can change. And it's really important, I think, and we will continue to stress it, why we must vote locally above all. Because, you know, we have these discussions on the show when they're like, why does my vote even matter? It matters. Does. It matters. It matters. And you guys are proof that you're making changes.
Kevin, we had Young Thug and Gunna slated to be at Summer Jam this Sunday. And obviously they're not going to be there because of the circumstances we're talking about. But you're the company you used to own outright, 300 Entertainment, being a sponsor of this bill and working with the Reform Alliance. We're just happy that you guys are coming to us today to bring light to this Senate bill. It's Senate Bill S7527. Am I saying it right? 72. I think 7215. I think it's the bill number. And 7215. In the assembly, it's a different bill number. And we're trying to get it done. The legislative session is over, unfortunately, in New York State. So we're going to have to wait until at least January, I believe, in order to get this to make it become law. But we want to make sure that that we get this passed, because it is critically important to be able to. You have to draw a factual nexus, right? You can't. I use an example in the waiting room of one of my favorite example is that Rick Ross doesn't really owe the real Pablo Noriega 100 favors, right? No. Like if you tried to introduce that as evidence in court, that would be absolutely ridiculous in order to prove a conspiracy, because that's clearly just an element of braggadocio, right? Right. So you have to be able to draw a line, right? What's the factual nexus? And again, what we're not saying is that if you confess to the commission of a actual crime and you can draw the nexus, there's no reason why a prosecutor shouldn't be able to use that, because at that point, it's not art. That's right. It's not art. It is the admission. You said a thing was a thing, and we're drawing a line between you and that thing. But also, but now when you talk about in hip hop, the element of braggadocio, the element of swagger, so to speak, how do you govern that, right? How do you legislate that? What's the intent? And also, like, real talk, we know about ghostwriters, right? Who's to say that artist X actually wrote what they said? What was the state of mind when that was written? Who wrote it? When did they write it? These are things that we have to take into consideration, into context. Now, go ahead, Kevin. You said
no. I was just saying it's sad that we spending time talking about lyrics, man, and it's just sad that being a product of my environment and seeing things that I have ease of access to, but now being able to sit and have conversations with public officials and to move bills, you know, we've come a long way. And yes, it's going to take time. You know, this is a country that nothing's done without loss, nothing's done without war, nothing's done without oppression, nothing's done without racism, and these things we're built for because we're still here, and we do have these positions right now. But I can only implore all of you guys. I don't care how much money you have, how many chains you have, how many cars you have. You got to get your people out to vote locally so we can actually make that the sexy thing. You want to change your neighborhood? You want to change your environment? We have to vote locally, and so we have to use our influence. Not just our power, but our influence to actually get these young brothers and sisters who have decided to be a public service, get them in place because they look like us, they walk like us, they came from where we come from, so they understand us. You know what I mean? So I spending a lot of time on lyrics. You know, we know that's nonsense. You know, we got to spend the time on making sure we have reform. We make sure we have the right people in place to pass these bills when we pass.
Like so many things in American culture, we enjoy getting rid of it, and we get rid of our young people. We just throw them away, and we throw humans away. If there's a mental health issue, we just throw people away. And I think that, you know, culturally, we don't want to do the work that it takes to unpack why, right? And so there are voters and there are people listening to this right now who live in a neighborhood, and they are pissed off at the young people in their neighborhood about how they're acting, how they're dressing, the music they're listening to, et cetera, et cetera. And they think bills like this are a quick fix because they don't care about throwing their youth away, either because it ain't they kid or because they've gotten so frustrated with their own kids that they're willing to allow society to just eat them up and lock them up. Because as a culture, we don't really want to do the work. And I think that's an indictment on some of our failures too. And as we pointed out, this isn't a new problem. The reason this problem still exists of gangs, guns, society's failures, policy failures, is because as a society, we are not willing to address the real issues at hand, which is the corruption that takes place in Capitol Hill, in government, and how the money is pushed back into society incorrectly often. And we don't take care, we don't make sure that our most vulnerable are taken care of.
Ebro, I think when you say that, I want people to understand that the solution is on them. Folks like us have been trying to run for office for years, and it isn't until now that it's actually taking off. You can't complain about the corruption. You can't complain about the lack of investment and then have someone in front of you who wants to address it, but you don't want to show up to the polls.
That's right.
But you don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that folks are doing it because we want to get it done. We want to make sure that people, Jamaal mentioned it, I have the clean slate bill, 2.3 million New Yorkers with a criminal record who could have an opportunity to get work. But people don't want to do the work and actually go out and vote for the folks who are supporting bills like this. You know, Kevin talked about, we're talking about lyrics. Yes, it's lyrics, but it goes so much further than that because it's cyclical. Those same people who don't want to do the work were the ones listening to similar music 10, 15 years ago, and their parents were telling them off about what they were listening to.
Listening to Mobb Deep, listening to NWA, listening to B.I.G., listening to the whole thing. And
those lyrics were just as quote-unquote problematic for their parents. And now they want to turn their back on their kids and allow a prosecutor to use those same lyrics that back then they were telling their parents, but it's art. It's still art. It should be protected.
And you know what's so, it's so funny? I was telling people, you know, you think about all the big corporations, all the big companies, all the big families, all started in corruption. Also, they all started from a place of having nothing, but because through generational wealth, they changed their life. I could give you a prime example, Ebro. My older kids, Kevin and Kayla, I said, well, we're about to go to the club. They said, well, Daddy, who's DJing? I say the same thing to my younger kids, 10-year-old and 7-year-old. We're about to go to the club. They talk about it's a country club.
Exactly.
Just that little nuance of me being able to expose them to something else. And I just think the challenge is the hard work, but also the acknowledgement that this is not just about a young people's fight. This is my mom and dad is still alive. You know, my sisters are still. This is a family, a generational fight. But we have to get the mindset right, and we have to have these young women and young men that are serving us be part of us, not just look like us, but be part of us and have the conversations with us and be around us. And this is like, I've done 100 of these in my life. And you have state prosecutors right now that are under attack because they're doing good for our people.
That's right. That's right.
All around. I mean, they're going at them so bad. And so we're on the front line trying to make sure they're in position because they're decriminalizing things, putting people back to work, putting people out there, putting fathers back. The thing that bothered me about that when I was actually testifying for Doug is that I now have a father of 6 and his kids are without a father.
Right.
They're without somebody to guide them and say, Daddy, look at this. And Daddy, can you help me with this? So now for this next period of time, hopefully we can get bond, but for this next period of time, they're fatherless, yo. They're fatherless. The families that they've been supporting, they now have economic hardships.
Well, and that is one of the original fractures in our society. As we sit here today, and if we go back to the 50s and 60s, when you get to redlining, job loss, addiction, gangs, was prompted by all of those things, or which led to black fathers not being in the home. Because so many black fathers, whether it was going off to war, going to the military, coming home with addiction problems, et cetera, or just not having access to get to the jobs, ended up with other issues because of that, which ultimately ended them up incarcerated or just not able to contribute and being homeless. You know what I mean? You go around the nation, you know how many black men you see just walking around homeless? There's a reason for that. Like, that's not by accident. Then the other thing, sitting here.
It's almost by design.
It's by design. It's working perfectly. The other piece that we conveniently forget, mass incarceration as we know it today, started because clergy members, the black community, went to the Democratic Party, the Clintons in the 90s, and said, we want these gangs off the street. We want these guns off the street. And they just started locking people up any way they could. Fast forward to today, people, we made a mistake. We did this wrong. We should have zigged when we zagged. Here we are again.
But it's about not letting fear control the narrative, right? It is about, unfortunately, this country has become a nation of headline readers, right, that don't read the story.
That's right. That's
right.
Right.
People read you look at the headline pops, and that's what it is.
And that's everywhere, by the way.
And that's everywhere, right? But it is a pervasive attitude that we have in this city, in this state, in the country, but I can talk about the city and the state, that when something is popular in the media, when something just pops up as a headline, that becomes the prevailing topic, and then there's no discussion around the surrounding issues that you mentioned. You talk about root cause, like these are root cause issues, right? The greatest criminal justice reform that we could ever had are economic development and education. Those are the real keys to justice-related reform, period. But nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about the surface level street crime.
Because they want quick fixes, and they don't want to do the work, and we don't want to be honest about our societal failures. And there's structural failures in America that we just aren't honest about how white supremacy and the machines of white supremacy are active and working, as you said, Catalina, working perfectly so that they can disenfranchise, criminalize, and oppress the most vulnerable and keep them under the thumbs. They don't want, you look and you go, they don't want to see the rising tide float all boats, if you will.
Exactly.
It's so crazy. So sorry to interrupt you, Ebro. You're so crazy. I'm watching all this insurrection thing. Can you imagine if they were black?
Oh,
Can
man.
you imagine
It wouldn't even.
Could you imagine, number one, it'd be the worst massacre in the history of...
Kevin, before you even get to that, all those officers that got the day off, all those lack of snipers. Listen, I done been to Washington, D.C. for the Million Man March twice. Mm-hmm. There's people on every building top. Mm-hmm. All helicopters flying over. The fact that there was a large pre-planned gathering that had even an underbelly of some sort of friction, and there weren't people on every rooftop ready to pick off anybody that went left, is an indictment on how much of a sham this whole shit is. It wouldn't have even got insurrection. Insurrection. Black people wouldn't have even got to the steps.
No way.
In an
No
aggressive manner.
And so what's so crazy, what I wanted to point out is that we know the criminalization and the things that were done during this process. Those fathers are home because they're not having been prosecuted. They haven't been anything.
Yeah,
they're
man.
home taking care of their kids.
That's right.
Kevin,
They're
some
home.
of them are on vacation.
Some went on vacation. They had vacations planned. They had to, you know
It's
what I mean?
insane.
But all I'm saying, and we're sitting here talking about lyrics, yo. This is how bad the country is. We're talking about lyrics, and you have people who formed, ganged, did whatever, Proud Boys, whatever the hell you want to call it, did whatever, and they're home. They're home going through it. And then I got kids sitting in, a RICO charge because you're associated with somebody. Oh, we all know somebody, yo. We all been around somebody.
Listen, Kev, right here in New York, and this is another indictment on New York State specifically, and the audience should know this. They've had a gang list here in New York that has ruined young people's lives many times over, where a kid who just lives on a block, it's where he was born, it's where his parents lived. He's got a cousin or a friend that lives across the street. Those are his friends. He or she gets put on a gang list just because you live on that block. Then you could get, I mean, I don't know what's happening right now. They've claimed to have stopped doing this. I don't know how true that is. People are just getting scooped up. You know how many people got just scooped up and put in Rikers? Couldn't get out, couldn't afford to get out, got some loose charge, missed a high school graduation, missed a test to get into college, missed whatever, and their life is on the wrong path just because of where you grew up. And this happens all over the country.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that, you know, like, we're charged to change, right? And when you go back to some of the justice reform measures that me and Catalina and our colleagues in government did a couple years ago about the bail changes, about the discovery changes, about the changes to speedy trial, about to make our justice system fairer, right? And so that there's no one prevailing side that has an advantage. The merits of the case should be the merits of the case, or the accusation. The merits of the accusation should be the merits of the accusation. It should not be predicated upon wealth, upon geographic zip code, or upon any other factors than the underlying accusing charge, like what you've been accused of. Point blank. Period. You know, I grew up in the Northeast Bronx, a couple blocks away from Edenwald houses, right? Should I be involved? Should I be say I'm swept up in the dragnet because of where I live? I've never done anything in my life, right? But by zip code, I'm there by association. Is that fair? Could that have stopped me from going where I am now?
By the way, in America, it absolutely could have. And for the audience watching this conversation, it's great to see individuals like yourself doing this hard work on the front lines, making sure that there's policy change, making sure that there are real conversations and protections being put in place to take care of our young people and hopefully keep them on the right path and make sure that their expressions aren't used against them or getting them looped up into some sort of larger, let's just call it a conspiracy, because they got plenty of new jails and plenty of empty beds that they're trying to fill up out here. And they want to make money on that. And if they can use this to make money on that, they will. Absolutely. And I appreciate y'all for doing this work. You know what I mean? Now, for the rest of the audience, y'all know me. I'm going to get on the radio and tell you to stop playing yourself, too. You know what I'm saying? And make sure that you tightening things up out here and that you're staying focused, because the hard work that you guys are doing and working on, we also need accountability and young people to know that the system is set up to make sure that you don't succeed. So we got to work that harder.
It's set up to make sure that people like us got to work 3 times as hard.
Right.
You know, Jamaal and I both grew up in the hood, and we had people that took a chance on us. We went to law school. We actually went to law school together years ago, and then we became legislators. And part of what we're trying to do is open up those doors of opportunities for kids like us, so that the only choice left isn't to be part of that dragnet. But while we do that work, you're right, the young people out there got to know that and got to understand that the entire system is stacked up against us.
Well, and it's important that young people see this convo too and know that people are working on their behalf and that give a fuck. That's important, right? Because there's a young person that thinks nobody cares. Right? There's a young person that thinks nobody cares, so I'm going to just go out here and bug out because nobody don't love me, nobody don't care, nobody's working on my behalf, nobody wants to make sure I'm taken care of. There are people working very hard. They're dedicating their lives to it. On the other side, you got to do some work too, though, right? And you got to make sure you're where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And we get these grades and we get this work and we show up how we're supposed to show up. You know what I mean? Because it takes all of us to put in some work.
And we register to vote.
And we register to vote.
Thank
Kev,
you.
anything you want to leave us with?
Kev.
No, listen, because what's going on, Laura? I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure that we hit one of the most important things today, the Protect Black Art campaign. Can you please break that down for everybody?
Yeah, I was going there. You
Okay.
know, one of the things that really bothered me since I've been doing it for so long is that, like I said earlier, we was fighting the same fight. So I said, I understand now. Midterms coming up, election
There
coming
you go.
up.
There you go. There you go.
With the number one music in the world right now. Oh, so somebody got to go down.
That's right.
Now, I want you to understand, in the history of this country, every time an African American or a group of people get to a certain point, Black Wall Street, blah blah, somebody got to go down. So now with number one music in the world, we got to go down.
Oh, and never forget Fulton County, where all this is taking place. delivered the election. One of the counties that delivered the election.
Yes. So now they got to put things in this way, and so I want to make sure we're very clear that when you're doing things based on your political race, okay, we see you, we see what you're doing, we know what you're doing, but we built for this too, and so we're going to protect Black art, but not just Black art. Black young men and women who are creatives all around the country who are expressing themselves, who are telling you what's going on. And you can continue to try to take us out one by one, a whole group, however you want to do. We're going to protect Black art. We're supporting the New York bill. We want to put another petition out, Protect Black Art. It's going out. I'm sorry Young Thug and Gunna can't be there, but they will be there. Sign the petition. Make sure we start this. We will continue to get this done in New York. Continue to support Catalina and Jamaal, but this is something we got to do around the country. This is the bat signal is up. Protect Black art, sign the petition, make sure you go to Summer Jam still, talk about protecting ourselves, talk about protecting Black art, and I'm with you, Ebro. We still got to pull our pants up and do our job.
That's right. We got to know when it's time to do real business versus playing around. Kevin Liles, Catalina, Jamaal, we thank you for your time and your work today. See everybody at Summer Jam, where we will be celebrating Black art, and we will be talking about this petition and this bill to protect Black art. Thank you guys so much. And we'll be
signing petitions at Summer Jam,
we'll be signing at Summer Jam. Thank you for your time, yo, Kev.
Yes,
good
brother.
to see you, man. You looking good, bro. You looking good, bro. Look at it. Look at it.
Stop it, let it, baby girl. No, we could be on here for an hour. God bless you guys. I really appreciate it. Jamaal, Catalina, continue the good work, okay?
Thanks a lot, y'all.